we talked about the Dolphins situation. It certainly feels like they're guilty of a lot here. I don't know if they really felt the pain. They lost a draft pick, first-round draft pick coming up, lost another draft pick. The owner is not allowed to be around the team for a couple of months, and they're fined $1.5 million. Louis Riddick joins us on behalf of the mothership, ESPN front office insider. Louis, when you look at tampering and you look at tanking, you're trying to better your team, but which one is more egregious to you?
Well, I think tanking for sure because of the far-reaching implications that intentionally trying to lose games, Dan, I mean, that has, and that is, I mean, just look at, all right, just look at the kind of penalty that they hit Calvin Ridley with when compromising the integrity of the game obviously comes into question when you're talking about betting on football games and how that can have far-reaching, ramifications. When you're talking about not emphasizing winning games or trying to lose for whatever reason it is, in this case, to try and better your draft position. I mean, understand that's obviously compromising the integrity of the game because the game is not being played true to the way it needs to be played, which is to win. Now, so I would think that is much worse than tampering, which is something that we know happens. Okay. We all know that people talk to people who are under contract and strike deals long before it's permissible for you to strike deals. The good old secret meetings, whereas you wind up making some transactions that aren't official until they become official, until they're allowed to become official.
But this feels like selective punishment for tampering. If it goes on all the time, everybody knows there's a speed limit. That doesn't mean we adhere to the speed limit, but then you get pulled over and there are other cars that are going just as fast.
Well, I think sometimes that is what the NFL gets criticized for, as far as how they hand out punishment, that sometimes it does feel selective and subjective and not fair and on the level across the board. Now, I will say that the commissioner wrote in his statement there that this was egregious tampering of a level that he has never seen before, in terms of tampering with a quarterback and a head coach who are both under contract and untouchable and doing it for the period of time that they did it.
Yeah.
In the brazen way in which they did it. And that is, when you start using those kind of words, just like when they use those kind of words, when Judge Robinson used that kind of word to describe the Deshaun Watson case, when she's talking about egregious and predatory, there's certain words, and I'm not telling you something you don't know. When those kind of things are said, that makes you perk up a little bit and go, well, even for these guys who kind of know how it kind of goes, as far as, the commissioner knows what we're talking about here as far as tampering, he knows what's going on. But when he uses that word, like, God, he's almost saying, like, I can't, what am I supposed to do? When I look at this, I'm like, damn.
But do you think that Sean Payton would have quit the Saints?
Yeah.
Like, he knew that he was getting the Dolphins job.
Right.
Do you think that he quit the Saints knowing he was going to get the Dolphins job, and then it didn't happen, and then he ended up going into broadcasting?
I don't know. I really don't.
But if you look at the breadcrumbs here, Brady, retires from the Buccaneers, and then all of a sudden, Dolphins rumors, meeting on the yacht. Brian Flores says, I don't want to be involved. Sean Payton's a bit like, there's a whole lot going on here.
Yeah, I don't know, as far as how, when Sean made the decisions that he made as far as quitting the Saints and then moving on into broadcasting, or how that came about. What I do know, though, is one of the names that you just brought up there in that whole scenario, that being Brian Flores. Just think about how this man has been being undermined right from the outset while he's the head coach of, going back to the 2019 season. Where he is sitting there knowing that there are people who are emphasizing draft position over winning football games. And then knowing that obviously, there's people who are actively trying to replace him while he's being hired to do his job. And then the implications that has for minority coaches and all. This is there's so many different layers to it and what it means and how it affects others. And it all falls under that compromising the integrity of the game umbrella, all of it.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think when you factor in all of that, the effect that it had on Brian Flores, the effect, that the perception that it obviously creates amongst the fans. I mean, the commissioner had no other choice. He had no other choice, just from the tampering aspect. He had no other choice.
But who jokes about tanking? Who?
Nobody.
Like owners.
Well,
owners
right. I mean,
would not joke and go, "I'm just kidding."
Yeah, no kidding.
There's a little truth in every bit of kidding.
Exactly. You're right. That is the kind of thing that I would assume you have a reasonable amount of awareness to the fact that you can't joke and kid about that kind of thing.
No.
You can't say it and then just go, "Oh, I'm just messing around. Oh, you don't take me." Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think everyone who has any kind of common sense and has a little bit of awareness knows that you're right. With every joke, there is a little bit of truth to it. And in this case, it's something that it just can't be tolerated. Not if you want to be taken as credible in terms of holding everyone accountable. And see, look, that's a whole nother subject, right? I mean, we're talking about the whole accountability issue when it comes to the NFL, making sure that they're holding everyone to the very highest standard. And people have a big problem. I think that's more or less at the crux of everyone right now's anger and disappointment, is the level of accountability being fair and equitable across all parties, players, management, coaches, owners. And quite honestly, look, the NFL has said themselves, we need to hold management and ownership to higher standards than to which we even hold the players. And many people are feeling as though that's not the case.
Well, you look at Deshaun Watson. Look, do I think he got off, easier? He should have sat down for a season, in my opinion.
Sure.
But it's based on precedent here.
Right.
The thing with owners is we don't necessarily have that much precedent here that I can go Daniel Snyder, Stephen Ross, or Jerry Jones, or Robert Kraft. They're not held to a higher standard.
Right.
Because I don't know if the commissioner is this angry at Deshaun Watson's ruling as he was with what Stephen Ross and the Dolphins are guilty of here. Like, if I look at his language there, he is PO'd. Because you're looking at the integrity of the game. The bottom line is gambling. You got to trust the shield. Like, this to me is more egregious. Yes, Deshaun Watson, predatory, creep, and should sit down and get therapy and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But these are owners here.
Yeah, this is, the interesting, well, I guess you should say, well, the weird dynamic here, though, is he works for them.
Yes.
And so, so therefore he's like saying, look, I know I work for you, but I need to set up some rules and guidelines by which if you step over the line here, I can then come at you and hit you with. And I need to make sure that it is swift and it is severe and everyone understands that these are the rules, are non-negotiable, and you cannot do these things. And if I find that you've done these things, this is the amount of money you're going to get hit with. This is the amount of suspension you're going to get hit with. And see, that's kind of like what Judge Robinson said. Like, there is no system in place where the NFL basically has that all set, so everyone understands what the rules are. It's kind of like made up as you go.
Yeah,
it's very reactionary instead of forward thinking, which is exactly what she said. This is a league that may be forward facing, but is not very much so forward thinking, and that's what gets people. That's what gets them into trouble.
And you know what? We shouldn't put this on her.
That's right.
It shouldn't be on her to change the NFL's ways of doing things and how they punish somebody. It should be on the NFL. Does the commissioner appeal this? Does the NFL appeal this and go after for more with Deshaun? They got less than 24 hours here.
As much as they may not want to, because they would like to have this new system take hold, the fact of the matter is, just as far as having a third party decide these kind of punishments, I don't think they have any other choice. The reaction has been just too emotional. It's been too explosive. And I think they know in their heart of hearts and in their soul that, look, it's just not enough, given what she said that the NFL did prove in terms of presenting the evidence to her. She agreed with them as far as what they presented to her, but she's just saying, but I'm not going to do something that you wouldn't even do or what you haven't done in the past in terms of handing down punishment. I'm just going to follow the guidelines that you have done in the past. So it's your fault that I'm not going to hit him even harder, although I agree with you. which has got to be like, wow. It should make you, meaning the NFL, sit back and think, well, maybe we need to reevaluate here the personal conduct policy and how punishment is handed out. And we need to make it a little bit more concrete, a little bit more, so the players and the owners know exactly what they're dealing with if they step over the line, what exactly is coming. Because right now, which he basically told them is, you don't really have a system in place.
Great to talk to you as always, Louis. Thank you for your insights.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Louis Riddick, former NFL player, ESPN front office insider.